Hello, people. Welcome back to E20 Zone TV on this Monday tea time stroke evening. To my right is Jay, and we're here to talk about anything you want to discuss to a point. Live Q&A sesh. Jay, how are you doing? How's your Monday been?
Yeah, I'm good. It is Monday. We are officially 48 hours away from or after West Ham ruining all of our weekends. So it's nice to be through Monday and it's a new week and a new start. So all good over here, mate. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I've seen the fallout from a lot of people. Some people are trying to paint a positive light on it, and I get that. Some people have got to be realistic and say this is not right. It's simply just not right. And then there's my opinion where I look at it and I think this has been a mess from basically ever since Moyes left to a point, which we're going to get into. Basically, the headline is who's failed us? Who has failed us deep down, Jay, at West Ham for you?
There's blood on a lot of people's hands here, isn't there? Like we sit down and we have a chat about all things West Ham numerous times a week. You cast your mind back to when David Moyes took over. And look, we're going to say David Moyes' name a few times in this stream. No one come at me. Like we're literally going to talk about a bunch of things. It's the name that you can't say like one way or another, because whoever has the opposite opinion of you will shoot you down. Yeah. So I will say his name a few times in this stream. Everyone hopefully is okay with that whilst you're cooking your dinner or whatever. Look, you cast your mind back to a couple of years ago and where we were sat. We were not doing great in the league, and I was having this conversation recently. So we weren't doing great in the league. Weekend results were crap, but we were winning every week in Europe. So it at least gave you something to look forward to, right? Fast forward, we win the cup. And then the following year, I think we all have a bit of, not all of us, but there's a big section of the fan base that have a bit of blood on their hands first and foremost. And this is summarized by an opinion that I saw on the cesspit that is Twitter. And there has been some wild ones coming out. There has been a lot of strange things coming out on Twitter. We're in a weird place, so I understand what people are saying. This strange opinion was someone saying that they rank our Conference League win the same as if we finished 6th or 7th in the league. Like, have you ever, like, what in the deluded fan is that opinion? Like, that is absolutely insane.
I can't believe it, when I hear things like that. One thing I'm going to say is when I'm not even going to swear. I'm going to try and I've got a swear box and I'm going to make sure I use it today, because I can't keep swearing, right? It's not good for my health. But when I hear things like that, that angers me, like, to the point of, like, blowing my absolute F top. Do you know what I mean? The 7th of June, 2023 at 10 o'clock that night will be the best night that I've ever had in my life. Yeah, I have no kids. When I have kids, it will probably be matched with that. Yeah. For me, when people downplay the trophy win at West Ham for their own argument, I don't get it. I simply, listen, I'm going to be honest, I do not get the logic. When you've not won nothing for so many years, I've never seen West Ham win anything. You haven't, right? We've all grown up in the same sort of era to a point, like the 90s football, Di Canio, everything going down. We've had more bad stuff happen than good stuff. And when we do have a good stuff, we downplay it because it's a manager that they don't like. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? I honestly don't get it, mate. I really don't.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? It's very strange. Like so stuff like that is where certain areas of the fan base who then just started getting on this bloke's back. I look back at, because we'll cover this topic first and foremost, right? And say the fans is the first topic. People staying behind after a game and telling David Moyes that their nan could have won that cup. What are you on? Like you're a West Ham fan. That's the bloke that's brought you the greatest moment in the last 43 years for West Ham, and you're standing hours behind after a game to tell him that your nan could have won that cup. What is wrong with you? Like that's a disgraceful thing to do, and that is the start, or that is part of a big wave of like anti-Moyes rhetoric that come
But
out, right?
but for me, I'm going to say it openly, yeah, because I say what I like on this platform, because this is my platform, and this platform's for me, Jay, Lucas, Mitch, and all the boys who come on this platform. There was a lot of people that was lying last year, lying for their own benefit and their own argument, just to be right about David Moyes. Um, I can understand people wanting Moyes out, yeah, but the way they was going around it was vile to a point. And to sort of go around it in a way to sort of shame him, shame anyone who sort of had respect for the geezer. Because I'm not being funny, I had respect for Moyes because of what he had delivered. Do you know what I mean? When I've seen Avran Grant, Kirbishley, Zola, Allardyce, I've seen all these plums who's been at the club, and I see a manager that come in. And let's have it right. We didn't have a lot of expectation for this manager. Yeah, when Moyes come in, he came in to stabilise us, and he took us on a journey. And I just felt that no one was giving him the credit of what he had done, and there was more like trying to shame him to a point and making him out. I heard so much stuff last year, which was borderline criminal. From he doesn't look a good manager as in looks, but who cares how he looks, right? There was him basically, how can I put it, being rude and disrespectful to people and all that, and making him sound like that. This geezer was a quiet bloke who used to sit in Canary Wharf. I remember someone sent me a photo of him just sitting having a Chinese on his own. Do you know what I mean? Looking at like in Canary Wharf, because that's where he was living. And I think when people sort of dug him out, I can understand it, but it doesn't mean to say it was right. You know what I mean? You can not like the manager, but you can still respect what he done. And I don't think many people could accept that. If I'm being honest, I really don't.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, what the fans say does carry some weight. We know that there are certain mouthpieces in the press and on social media that will speak the words of David Sullivan. There's now a mouthpiece that will speak the words of Tim Steidten. And it's like, how have we got in this mess where they will hear what the fans say, they will say what they want through like other people, and you just get this. Like, I can't trust a single word that I hear about West Ham now, other than from like normal salt of the earth, proper West Ham fans that we sit and talk to, as you say, you and the boys, that we'll sit here and just talk our honest opinions and talk respectfully and honestly about how we feel. But everything I see on social media now, I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to
Do you know
believe.
what?
It's confusing.
It's so true, yeah. The only people I trust are Mitch, you, Lucas, and all my trader mates. Because all my trader mates were never wrong about Lopetegui. They was telling me about him for a long time, and hearing whispers. And obviously, you hear stuff in the market and everything, like especially in the gambling game. Like if you're involved in that sort of side and you've got your ear to the ground, you can find out what's really going on. Yeah. And I always said on this platform, I will never put out stuff because I'm a West Ham fan, like you are, like everyone who's in my chat right now. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you for the sake of a few views. I don't need the views. I don't need the money. I do this because I love I love this club. I love the boys who come on this platform, and I also do it because I want to give like fans from other countries a voice. Like for instance, when I look at other platforms, I don't see them giving people like Sadaddy a go. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even though he's Kermit the Frog and he does drive people mad, he's still a West Ham fan at the end of the day. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, and I can't be rude to that. I just want to get to this question for Happy Hammerette. We need 40 mil to get a striker in January. What players would you sell to make up the money? Who's surplus to requirements? Just say we can't sell Paqueta though.
That's
What are
a
you saying, Joe?
great question. Crikey. And there's a potential answer to this. I'm not saying this is the right answer because firstly, who have we got this like a single player that's a 40 million pound asset that we could sell in January? I don't think there is one. I'm sure you saw the news as well. It looks like Arsenal are lining up Mohamed Kudus. And apparently who's that winger? Trossard could be off to Saudi in January for 40 mil, which means they would have funds to spend on Mohamed Kudus, and apparently would be willing to spend 80 to 90 mil. Now,
Can't
he
do
doesn't
them
have...
again.
Yeah, I know. This is the thing. But look at it this way, because to Hammeret's question, a really good question as well. And the reason it's also a really good question is because, again, I don't know whether Hammeret or anyone in chat has seen this, that apparently apparently West Ham board members flew to Brazil in the last week to pursue a bid for Igor Jesus, who is available for 37 million euros, apparently, who was available on a free in the summer. But now that he's playing well in Brazil for Botafogo, we're interested in him. So the question's a really good question, because it's actually something that could be quite realistic. And the question that I'll pose to you, James, and to everyone in chat is, if Arsenal came in with £85 million in January for Mohamed Kudus, do you say yes?
That's tough, mate.
Mm.
Tough. Like, because I look at Mo, and I'll be honest, Lopetegui's ruining him. At present, he's just ruining him. So what do? Do you cash in on him and hope he because the problem is, this is where the problem is with West Ham, is where we're going this year. If we're going to a mid-table finish, do you cash in on Mo now and then try and build the side up, get a few players in January, stabilise this season, and then go strong next summer in a big hit? I honestly don't know. I can't deal with Arsenal fans for Mo Kudus, mate. I had to deal with that with Declan Rice,
Yeah.
and I'm going to say it, they were fucking vermin. That's £1 in the swear box.
I was going to say.
For me, I can't deal with Arsenal fans again taking another one of our best players. Like, do you know what I mean? Because then what have we become? What have we become? A feeder club to that North London lot? Not for me. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. You keep him and you try and figure this out. I really do. I'll get to this comment here from Paul. Yeah, Prague is the best night of my 51 years of being a Hammer. It's also the third tier of European trophies. Both things can be correct at the same time. The problem is, Paul, if we was winning trophies consistently over the last 43 years, I'd say, you know what, I'd agree on the third tier thing. When we haven't won nothing, and then there's people knocking it, the one thing we have won, that's where I can't work it out. Like, it seems like what I have noticed, I don't know about you, Jay, but it feels like some people want to go back to the old West Ham. Upton Park, struggling, being that sort of side, look good on the eye, but don't do nothing. And my attitude to that is you simply just can't be that side anymore. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and this is where, to the original point of conversation that we're having here, is who's to blame for the mess that we're in, and we can easily move on to Sullivan and Brady for the next point. And these words, there are words that will ring in my ears and many fans' ears, and I believe this is why so many fans are desperate and yearning to go back to those Upton Park days. And I agree with you. Like, it's in the past now. We have to move on from it. There's nothing we can really do about that. But the words from Karen Brady when we were bidding for that stadium of a world-class team for a world-class stadium, I cannot get them out of my head. I cannot forget them. And she has lied and betrayed us on that front. Because if you could, we'll come to all of them. But those words were the first thing that I remember seeing. And I remember seeing those brilliant CGIs of how they were going to transform the London Stadium and make it a football ground. And we were told that the sight lines were going to be better than Wembley Stadium. They're nowhere near better than Wembley Stadium. It weren't even ready on the first day. And we got conned. We just got conned. Our spiritual home, we were ripped away from it and plopped in Stratford into an athletic stadium. If they'd have accepted that they'd got things wrong and put those things right, there's forgiveness there. And we will always look at things factually, and we will always look at things from, all right, you got this wrong. You admitted you fucked up, and we're now dealing with whatever we're dealing with. But there's never been any acknowledgement of that. And we're just dealing with crooks at the top of the tree who have lied to us. And I attribute those lies to why a lot of these fans are now confused and why people don't know where our priorities are. Because we moved away with these promises of greater things, and we did not deliver. We delivered one. We didn't deliver it. David Moyes delivered us way more than we could ever have expected from him. He delivered us not only stability, but a trophy for the first time in 43 years. We have no right to that. absolutely no right to that. But we got to this stage where we've experienced all of that. And I'll accept I was part of this that thought we could kick on and there could be more now. Like, we've got the platform to do it, and we've completely messed it up. So I don't blame those fans, because if we go back to where the problems are and what the issues are, Brady, Sullivan, the lot of them, they've got a lot of blood on their hands.
One thing I will say, shout out to Kev, friend of mine. I'm going to be honest. I was saying this last year. I was saying quite a lot last year, and every time I used to say this is not a Moyes problem, this is an ownership problem, people used to say, "Oh, it's because you're a Moyes lover, like you love Moyes and all that." Right? What are you saying about me now? That's what I'm going to say to them people. What are you saying about this fat prick now? Yeah, because for me, I knew this was coming. I just knew. I sat there and I went, yeah, you can get Moyes out, but do you? I don't. I've never will ever trust David Sullivan. I will not set foot in the LS until that geezer's out the door, and that's hard for me. Every week that I have to sit there or sit in a pub and watch the game, and I think I will not set foot in that ground because I know what he's doing to the fans. I know exactly how he's exploiting the fans. He's turned West Ham into a franchise. Yeah, we are a franchise club. That is unacceptable. Yeah, West Ham London. You're trying to basically overprice and outprice all the loyal fans who have been there for years. This is not me making this up. This is just pure fact. And what I'm saying, I'm spitting facts. And the thing is, when I look at the previous manager, that manager was never coming in to get us into Europe and take us on that journey. He was coming in to stabilise us and probably get us into to 10th, where basically Sullivan would have been happy, right? When I look at Sullivan, he's always going to be the problem. Yeah, and this is why I said it the other day. I said it on the afterthought and all. We've got a huge problem now, a very, very bad problem we have got at West Ham, because now we've got an owner that is he gonna do the right thing and let Lopetegui go, and we've got Lopetegui who has got no idea what he's actually doing. Yeah, and he's so erratic, he's so all over the place, and I don't like to say it, but I just knew I knew Sullivan would do this. I just knew it, Jay. I just knew it was coming. When I was hearing things last year about a new manager, and some shout out to Will from the We Are West Ham podcast, who we've done a show with the other week. He said something that sort of dawned on me and stayed with me for a long time. He said what people were looking at, they thought it was just going to be better, but no one realised that it could also go the other way. It could end up being incredibly worse. And for me, I do blame a lot of this on Sullivan. I'll tell you the reason why Sullivan will never buy no one out of a contract. Yeah. And this is why I've always stated this all the time. Because when you buy someone out of a contract, you're buying quality. Yeah. Because any manager that's in employment that you're going after someone who's highly sought after. So, for instance, I use Thomas Frank as an example. He's a manager that is highly rated to a point, and he's at a club where he needs to take the next step. If Sullivan goes and buys someone out of a contract and he comes in, then that manager could be even more powerful than Sullivan. Yeah. Every time Sullivan hires people, he always hires people who's beneath him. Right. I'll go through it quickly. Avran Grant. Yeah. Out of work. Absolutely refused to sack him on the end of January when we lost 3-1 in 2011-2012 season. Yeah. He refused, right? I'll never forget it. It was a cold night. It was snowing, and everyone thought Martin O'Neill was going to come in. Got leaked to the press that O'Neill was linked with West Ham. He decided to go against it. Didn't bother doing it. Yeah. So, Avran Grant. Then you had Big Sam out of work. Another one. Yeah. He was basically told get us back into the Premier League, right? All of that happened. Yeah. The same thing happened with Moyes. Happened with Big Sam with the contract and everything else. Then you come up to Billage. Yeah, Billage was how would you assess Billage's appointment, Jay, for you? What would you say? Would you say that's a ex-player vibe on that one? Would you say?
I actually, this is one of the few that I think he got right. And just very quickly on Allardyce as well, because Allardyce was a pragmatic appointment. He was on a free, and the way he was treated at the end of his time by the owners was disgraceful for considering what he achieved at West Ham. Sam Allardyce, he stabilised us. He kept us in the Prem. He first and foremost got us promoted, and his sacking his leaving was announced whilst he was doing a press conference after the final game of the season. Absolutely disgraceful. Bilic was an interesting one because, again, he's another one that we had kind of flirted with. Bilic was obviously desperate to come back to West Ham. But again, I think he was on a free, he was available, and it was the perfect storm. But it was one that worked really well. Like having a West Ham man in charge for the final season at Upton Park was incredible. And he got the emotion and he got the club. So Bilic was one where I'll say he got it right. But I think it's by sheer luck that he got it right. Sheer luck.
And then you sort of shift over to that, gets rid of Bilic, brings David Moyes in. This is a David Moyes that basically was sacked by Sociedad, no good at Sunderland, basically come in to try and save us, saves us, lets him go. Then you go for the high-end manager again in Pellegrini, someone who was out in China, for crying out loud. He was out in China and his career was as good as over to a point. Brings him back, has one good season, second season, same thing again, collapse. And then you go full circle around to Moyes. Like, you're never going to see Sullivan going for someone who's young, up and coming, right, and build with them. Yeah, he wants it ready made. He's very old fashioned, the man. Do you know what I mean? And for me, he will always be the problem. I just want to get to this comment from Gravy Dave. Who's your money on for the next manager, James? Mine's on Rafa. Do you know what, mate? I'm going to be straight. That's where my money's going, straight away. And this is the worry that I've got with West Ham at the minute, especially with Lopetegui. Rafa Benitez is sitting there. He's out of work. David Sullivan loves this geezer. Yeah, he's always wanted him to manage West Ham United. And there's been times where he's tried. It wouldn't surprise me, I'm going to say it now, if Lopetegui got the sack and they looked at Benitez to come in to the end of the season, on an interim basis. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't see him going. Anyone who keeps telling you, and I'm going to say it so softly that I can say it. Anyone saying to you that he's going to go and buy someone out of a contract, it just ain't going to happen, mate. It's just never, ever, ever going to happen because he just never does it. Do you know what I'm saying? I agree with what Happy Hammerette says there. I reckon it'd be Potter, but does Potter fancy it at West Ham?
I don't think he's the right man for West Ham. I don't have a bad word to say about him as a manager, but I think I made this point on a show we did a while ago. He thrived at that Brighton team because he had a lot of good support, and that's a really well-run club. The second he went into a chaotic club like Chelsea, he didn't know what he was doing. He had a ton of players, he had a ton of staff that he didn't necessarily want to work with, and he had an owner that wanted to call the shots. I'm sorry, you look at West Ham and you've got an owner who wants to call the shots. You've got a technical director who also wants to call the shots. And then he's going to have to build his backroom staff himself, as opposed to have the club select the right people for him. Mate, it's too much chaos for Graham Potter. I agree there's a good chance he gets it. And he's, as the bookies have it, he's quite likely to get it. I agree with you. I think it's nailed on to be Rafa. I think it's absolutely nailed on that Rafa would come in and take over. But I think Potter's probably a close second.
If there's ever a time where the moment let's put it this way, I'll get my words out, the moment Lopetegui was to get the sack, I'll be ringing up people and finding out what price I can get on Rafa Benitez.
Oh, 100%. You tell me and I'll go on it with you because I 100% think it's him. I completely agree with you.
Because I can't see it in any other person, if I'm being honest. Like, if Potter doesn't want the sort of challenge at West Ham, then who else is there? Like, it ain't going to be a high-end name because, who's going to really want to work with David Sullivan? That's the problem. Well, that is the real problem. And this is what I was saying last year. You can take Moyes out. I can get that argument to a point, even though I don't agree with it. I can get it. But who's really going to look at David Sullivan and think, I want to work for that man? Like, no one, really. The only problem we have got is Kadinsky has got to shape up also. Yeah, there's a few of them in there. Brady's she's just I ain't even going to say what she is, yeah? She's just a rat, right? Sullivan runs the show, and I think we all know this now, yeah? When people were saying last year that, don't worry, Tim's going to pick the manager, Tim ain't picking nothing, mate. Tim does as he's told. And remember who gets paid here? Like, Tim gets paid by Sullivan, right? So we all need to understand that. And for me, Kadinsky's got to shape up now because he's got a stake in West Ham. Surely he's got to put his foot down, or even he's got to put it on Sullivan to threaten to walk out the club and say, right, you don't do this on our terms now, we're walking. Yeah? Do you know what I'm saying?
Make no mistake on Kretinsky, right? Because he bought into West Ham whilst the stock was high, and he bought in because he saw it's a great investment in there. And he's the Czech Sphinx for a reason. He invests in like tons of really, really sensible business ventures. He just bought Royal Mail, didn't he? Like he's really, really good with his money. And there's a reason that he didn't want to buy a majority share. There's a reason that he doesn't want to increase his stake to buy a majority share. Like his passion project is Sparta Prague. He's majority shareholder at Sparta Prague. So he only bought West Ham for the financial reasons because he could put money in when we needed it. And he knows the club will be up for sale sometime soon and he'll turn a profit on his money. Like, so I agree with you. He does need to shape up. He doesn't really care about West Ham. As long as his money's working for him, he's got no love for West Ham. He's parked it in a really, really sensible place because like London, I still maintain at some point in the not too distant future, we'll end up owning London Stadium or we'll get like a 999 year lease or something where we can actually control the stadium because that is not sustainable. We won't talk politics, but as much as Sadiq Khan claims it's like the crown in the jewel of London and whatever, it isn't sustainable. And there's going to be a time probably in the next 10 years where we end up owning London Stadium. As soon as we own London Stadium, club's worth a fortune. Like as simple as that. Club's worth an absolute fortune and we'll sell out to the highest bidder. And that is when Kretinsky goes, yeah, brilliant investment. So I agree with you on Kretinsky, but if we're looking to him for light at the end of the tunnel, then we're looking in the wrong place. I want to touch on Steiden briefly because it was a perfect segue into like the relationship between Steiden and Sullivan. Now, when Steiden came in, he came in whilst David Moyes was the manager. And I thought, as a lot of people would have thought, right? I thought Steiden was coming in and he was going to transform the way that this club was run. And he did go on.
I just want to stop you one second. Did you think it, or was it that people were blowing smoke so far up his arse of what he had done at Leverkusen and basically made out that he was Leverkusen's messiah when deep down it was Simon Rolfs who was there also, and there was a big team of them who was in Leverkusen.
I think that plays a part in it, and I think there's a lot of people who still dine off of that and who can't now look at things holistically and take a step back and go, well, actually, hang on. Now that we've got all the facts, he didn't do all of that work at Leverkusen. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of like what he did and didn't do and stuff like that. That's a big long conversation for another day, and I probably don't know enough facts about it. But I look at Steiden and I look at some of the things he did when he joined. Park the transfers for a second, but we started to get in more data analysts. We started to get in more scout. We started to be a bit more scientific in our approach, which I thought, yes, this is what we need. I remember when David Moyes first signed, and he said, I'm sure there's a quote out there, and someone in chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure when he joined, he said that our scouting department was like 2 people, and that was it.
Yeah.
And he had to come in and he wanted to build the club like back up from top to bottom because we were so poorly run behind the scenes. So you looked at like when Steiden come in and he wanted to go more data driven, which I'm all for. That's modern football. Like that's what you have to do. He's brought his brother in, who is supposedly I think he's like a data analyst or something like that. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, yeah, cool. So we're going to go for this like new approach. And then I look at what's happened since probably January of last year, where Steiden and Moyes start to butt heads. Steiden wanting certain targets, Moyes still having full control. That's always going to happen when you've got a technical director and an old school manager. Moyes doesn't need a technical director because he's one of the dying breed, which is old school British managers who would control everything. They'll just deal directly with the owner and say, I need money for this player, go and get him. And that's how they would run a club. So him and Steiden were always going to butt heads. And that came to a head when Steiden was interviewing other candidates quite openly, the Ruben Amorim thing, and which ultimately resulted in him being banned from the touchline by David Moyes. So again, I forgave all of that and was like, it's kind of a perfect storm, really, isn't it?
But in hindsight, was he wrong? Looking back now, was Moyes wrong to ban him?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because now we look at it, fast forwards. Yeah. And you look at like the thing before Spurs. Oh my God, the thing before Spurs when he's in the tunnel talking to Areola, talking to Jared Bowen before they walk out for kickoff. Like, I'm sorry, the last words ringing in the players' ears should be the managers or the captains. That's it. If you're wearing a suit, I don't want you anywhere near the players before a game. I'm not that keen on you being on the pitch after the game as well. And I'm even less keen on you doing pre-match interviews because you have nothing of value to say about what's going to happen on the pitch because you shouldn't be involved in any tactical discussions. So as far as I'm concerned on that front, that is all totally weird. And so to your point, you rewind back to when Steiden and Moyes are butting heads and you go, Moyes sensed the rat, didn't he? He sensed the rat. And after his first summer with supposedly full control, what have we got to show for it from this data-driven approach? We've got a midfield that does not exist. We spent £25 million on a 31-year-old striker, and we're in the mud. So, like, you look at Steiden's got a lot of blood on his hands as well, mate.
Well, I'm going to be honest. Yet again, I'll go back to our own fans. And we are, some of our fans are at fault for this. When there was blowing smoke up his arse and making out he was going to be the Messiah. That's the problem. People were, and I get it. Listen, I've done it. You've done it. We've all hyped up players and managers and everything. But the Tim Steiden technical director thing, I even see something on Twitter the other day, which I thought to myself, what's that prick as a fucking top West Ham shirt with Steiden on the back? Someone had got Tim Steiden or Steiden #1 on the back of a shirt. You've got to be mentally disturbed, right, or unhinged to do that. Do you know what I mean? This geezer is a technical director, and as I said last year with Moyes, I'll say it again, right? He's an employee. That's all he is, right? He's paid to do a job, and at the minute, his job is shit, right? And what he's done, the midfield that he's delivered us is borderline criminal. It's a criminal offence, and he should be sent to prison for it. Yeah, like I can't believe how bad our midfield is, and how no one picked up on it. Right, I don't know. I simply do not know. I feel like I've let myself down because I sort of gassed him a little bit. I thought, you know what, that ain't bad, and then it's just pulled the wall completely over the whole fan base's eyes, and now we're all seeing it for what it is, and it's a mess, mate. It's a complete mess. What Stein's done. Now, the Nicholas Füllkrug signing, looking at it now, yeah, I don't know who to blame on that. I really don't, Jay. I don't know whether to blame the ownership of the club for not giving him the money to go out and get the #1 centre forward that he wanted, or do I blame Steiden? But then I'm going to be straight. Steiden arrived there 18 months ago, I think it was, yeah. Straight after Prague, I think it was, if I got that right.
Potentially.
And for me, we always knew we needed a striker at our club. Like, we always knew that every single time. Like, we need a striker, and to not get a striker pinpointed, targeted, and done. And we've been linked with so many good players over the last 18 months, and then we go for the one player that is basically. We don't know how good Füllkrug's going to be, but he ain't going to be as good as what we think he's going to be, if that makes sense.
Do you know what it feels like? It feels like he's been. So we know he goes on his little scouting missions, right? So he's done his multiple trips to Brazil. He went to the Euros as well, didn't he? So It feels like he's been told by Sullivan, right, if I'm going to sign off on all these private jet bills, you better come back with a good player. So he went to Brazil in the summer, having been told off. He come back with Luis Guilherme. He goes to the Euros. I think he left Brazil to go to the Euros, watched Nicholas Füllkrug in the Euros, who actually looked class for Germany, and has gone, all right, I'll buy Füllkrug as well and just show that these trips are actually worth it because I'm getting players. But like, part of his job is managing stakeholder expectations and managing David Sullivan. If he goes on a trip and goes, right, I am going to get my man, but they weren't there. If he's going to take a beating from David Sullivan, he's got to take it and he's got to fight back. But it seems like, and this is part of the reason I'm so disappointed in him, is because I wanted him to be new and I wanted him to be different, but he's just more of the same. And that is the thing that I can't forgive. You can come in, you can have a different approach, you can get things wrong, but he's the same as everything that we're used to. And like, what's the point in him? If he's going to be more of the same, what is the actual point in him? Because I can't see it at the moment. If anyone can tell me what he's done, and the only thing I will say that he's done, he's a great PR merchant, isn't he? We all love those jet pictures of him picking up a player that drop, and yeah, it's great, but it's PR. It's nothing more.
Do you know what? I'm going to shout out one man, yeah, Brozovic. Right, anyone who knows Brozovic on Twitter, He's one of the boys that come on the spaces, yeah, who I've sort of built a relationship with over the last sort of 2 years, yeah, in with West Ham. And he was saying to me, he said, Jay, this guy's a PR merchant about a year ago. He could just see it a mile off, like the way he's acting, the way he's sort of coming across. And then what done it for me was the Chelsea interview. Like Chelsea at home,
Mm.
12:30. He's there with an interview with a smile on his face, in front of the camera, telling us all the signings that we've done. And I was like, "What are you? Are you? What are you trying to be?" Like, I couldn't tell you who Poxy Ipswich's technical director is. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So, but everyone knows who our technical director is. And I think I'm going to be straight. I think we've got to take accountability on this also,
Mm.
because when we're gassing up a technical director and he hasn't done anything yet, I don't think that's right. If I'm being honest, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong, mate. And like I say, I think to the point I just made, for me personally, it was just the excitement of something different. It was the excitement of seeing West Ham like picks and targets. And
Mm,
so I'll give credit where it's due. He is a good negotiator. So you cast your mind back to the to Debo thing, and
mm,
he held his nerve on that, and he held his nerve, and he held his nerve, and we didn't go and buy someone else, and we got a player who is top quality. Like there is no mistaking. Tadibo is not at 100% yet, and he already looks brilliant. So there are some things he's good at. I'm not going to. I think it's fair for everyone in chat to know what my opinion is on Snyder now, but I'll give credit where it's due. He come in. He's good at player relations. Every player seems to gas him up in interviews, and he's a good negotiator. But I'm not being funny. Those are two non-negotiables for a technical director. I don't need to see them done in public. You look at Arsenal's this Edu lad is been announced that he's leaving. You ever see him on the pitch? Ever see him doing an interview? No, you don't,
nah,
because
nah.
he does the job well and he does it in private. That's all I need to know is that they do their job well.
Let's get to Michael's question. Do you think Tim was recruiting for another manager to start, then got shafted by Sullivan? No, mate. I'm going to be straight. I was saying this in December last year. I never forget it. I was on a space and it was mentioned about Moyes quite a lot. So what I done, I come off the space and I rang up a few people in the betting community and just said, right, is anything happening with Moyes with a new contract? Because obviously the people in the betting game hear a lot of stuff from a lot of people, a lot of journalists speak to him, obviously because there's money involved in it in the betting community. And I knew back then with Lopetegui, right, that Lopetegui was lurking around the scene. He had been to the game at the LS against Arsenal when we won 3-1. He hadn't been employed by no one, and it just felt like it was the right fit for Sullivan to go, you know what, look at the CV, look at the man, everything. And people were saying it to me back then, right? Tim was never in control of any manager, and anyone who was telling you that was lying to your face. I'm going to say it. I'll say it to you, and I'd invite any person to come on here and question me on that, because I know full well that there was lying to your face. And what hurt me more, I'll tell you what, one thing I'm going to say this if I get some more questions, yeah. What hurt me more last year is I was trying to tell people, please don't believe what you're hearing because they're lying to you. And people looked at me like I was the problem and gaslit me and say, oh no, you're the problem. You're a Moyes lover. You're Moyes this. Yeah. I don't care who manages West Ham, if I'm being straight. Like, do you, Jay, really? Like, as long as they do a good job and we can be the best that we can be, do you really care? Like, really?
No, not at all. I think this whole situation, and again, you go back to also I find the phrase Moyes lover funny. There's people that you say something positive about Moyes and people will criticize you for it. Greatest manager in our modern era. Like you can say nice things about him. Like it's not the end of the world. I actually don't care who manages West Ham anymore. I'm not excited by any name that anyone mentions about managing West Ham because ultimately if they come in and do a job, great. I've been stung now by this. We had David Moyes. We all felt it was the right time to kind of move on. A, because it was so toxic within the fan base that we needed change. And if we didn't get change, it was going to get worse and worse. But B, because we had these delusions that we could kick on.
Mm,
And I say delusions. Delusions probably is the wrong word because I do believe that we had the platform. And I do believe if we got the managerial appointment right, that we would have kicked on. But you've been saying this for a while as well. He went cheap. Like the options were out there, the chances were out there. And let's briefly touch on Ruben Amorim, right? Because he didn't just fly over to David Sullivan's porn mansion just for a cup of tea and a nice chat, did he? Like I do believe his primary objective was to try and like strong arm Liverpool into making an offer for him. I do think that was the main reason that he was speaking to West Ham. But ultimately, he wouldn't have even spoken to West Ham if there wasn't a way of West Ham getting him. Fast forward, he said in an interview today that he never had any intention of signing for West Ham. He only went to meet the owner. He was not leaving Sporting Lisbon at that time. That's a load of nonsense. Like let's be honest. That's a load of absolute
biggest load
nonsense.
of shit you ever like.
Yeah. Like I can't understand why you would like David Sullivan is not that fun to be around, and Ampika, I'm sure, is not that fun to be around as well. So like he didn't just fly over there for the sake of it, you know.
Who's coming around David Sullivan's house, sitting in front in his big sort of mansion with all like the chandeliers and all that,
gold wallpaper?
Yeah, like... I've just come round to have a nice cup of coffee with you, Dave. You know what I mean? How you doing? Sort of thing. I don't know, bollocks, mate. Honestly, the one thing I can't stand is the lies. Yeah. I see it on social media. I see it on YouTube. I see it all the time. The lies, and I can't just sit there and lie to people because I wouldn't like to be lied to myself to a point. And some of the lies are just borderline scandalous. Paul G, shout out to him. Noble and Nolan / Keane or similar from now to the end of the season, or stay with Loppy for the whole season. Loppy's got to go, mate. Look, I'm going to move on to Lopetegui now, yeah, but Lopetegui has to go if you want to save this season. Right, and this is personal preference time. Yeah, I don't know about you, Jay, but it's personal preference. What is it that you want out of this season? Now, for me, you have to get Lopetegui out. You have to go and get a manager that can come in and galvanise this whole squad, because we've got good players in our ranks. We're not dealing with crap players. We've got some good players there, and make it a season that we can sort of build from. Yeah, at the present, you've got a manager in there that if you give him the whole season, what do you do next year? Well, because we're going to be in a situation, I said this last year and all, right? That if we could be in a situation with Lopetegui where we're going to be winding his contract down, and people are going to say, well, look what he's trying to do. Like, you've got to give him time and benefit of the doubt. And then there'll be other people like myself are saying, no, he's got to go because he's no good. What are you saying on that?
I said this, was it yesterday? The weekend's blurred into one from all the misery of West Ham. But I completely agree with the sentiment of, and first of all, shout out Colin, my E16 brother. The sentiment of Nolan and Noble, I completely agree with. We do need people that we can connect with. We need people that understand the club. I just worry about them tainting their reputation. It is not a good time for them to be taken over. If they come in and they don't turn results around, because let's face it, Noble's never worked on a coaching staff before. As much as I love what he's doing with the youth at West Ham, and I am the biggest Mark Noble fan out there, he's never been on a coaching staff. Nolan's only managerial experience, he was player manager, maybe Notts County, someone in League Two.
Notts County, yeah.
That didn't work out for him. And then he's done a great job in the coaching staff under David Moyes. He gets the club. He knows the way it's run. It's a risk. It's a big risk. And my biggest worry is then those two ruin their reputations at West Ham, because I love both of them. I would like to see it in the future. I'd be happy, to your point, on it like a short-term interim basis whilst they get a permanent 100%. Manager. But I don't want to see them announced until the end of the season. Like, if that happens, I'm literally on eggshells and I'm on tenterhooks every week, just desperate for them not to ruin this for themselves as much as for West Ham. So not for me personally. I completely agree with you on that. I really do, because growing up, Mark Noble's roughly the same age as me. I've seen that kid from a boy to a man. I've been with him like through that. And for him to go and take over West Ham would be great at the start. But if it goes bad, he could be vilified. And it'd be you'd have another toxic environment. You have a lot of people that have saying, look at him, he's a club legend. And then you got on the other side of it, you got people saying that he's got to go because he's not good enough. Personally, I'd give him one game. Yeah, if it was me and I was in charge and I was I'd ring up Lopetegui, as I said last night, Alan Sugar, you are fired. Get out of this club. I would have Mark Noble and probably Kevin Keane, or Kevin Keane and Mark Noble, whichever way you want to put it. One game, Everton.
get the whole fan base together and up for this one game, secure the W, and then it's over to the ownership to go and find someone who can do the job. Now, Terzic, I see Cam in the chat there saying about Terzic. Does Terzic really want to fancy coming to here and work under Sullivan? He's been here before, hasn't he? Well, I don't see it.
And again, you can park style of play. Like if he gets results, I really don't care. Like it's the same as any manager. I don't care what style of football he plays. If he wins football games, you could play 9 at the back and win every game 1-0. I don't care. Like that works for me. Like you say, the question is, does he want to come? And do the fans accept him if he's scraping games 1-0? This is the problem. It's so toxic in our fan base at times, where like you will never ever please all of our fans, because you have to play a certain way for some groups of fans. But for me, just get results. I don't care what your name is, and I don't care how you play. Just get results.
But I don't get why it's gone like that, though, mate. I really don't. I don't remember it being as bad as it has been over the last 2 years. Yeah. Now, people can sort of say about the past regime, but for me, I would have we need to come together as a whole collective. Everyone needs to come together, yeah, and say, you know what, this is it, right? This is the situation. Will we though? Everyone's got different opinions, don't they? So yeah. Paul G says, what player should be captain? Great question. I actually, do you know what? I'm going to be honest. I actually feel sorry for Bowen at the minute, because I feel like you've got a lad in there as captain of our club who's being hung out to dry to a point. He's got no real characters around him who can help him through it. I honestly don't know. If you want me, this is one question, Jay, that I struggle with, because I look at it and I think, if Bowen wasn't there, who would be captain of West Ham?
Yeah, I mean, look at last season, right? At the leaders we had on the pitch. Say what you like about them. Zuma and Ogbonna were a pair of leaders, and like Ogbonna, as much as he was about 43 years old by the time he left West Ham, he would still give it everything. He was still full of passion, and he still put in that amazing performance away at the Emirates. Him and Mavropanos kept a clean sheet in a 2-0 win, so he still knew how to pull it out of the bag when he needed to. We never seem to have this issue with Zuma as captain. Not maybe we did. Maybe we just didn't notice it as much because times were a lot better on the pitch than they are right now. So, but you turn around now and you look at the centre backs. Kilman's quite introverted from what I see in interviews. He seems quite introverted, so he's going to take a bit of time to come out of his shell. Todibo the same. He's still very young and he's not necessarily leader material at the moment. The other person who was supposedly, we were told, a candidate to be captain was Edson Alvarez, who's let us down twice and has been just bang average at best this season. So I don't think you can choose anyone else at the moment, and I don't think you can rip the armband off of Bowen, because then he'll feel animosity towards whoever decides to take the armband off him. So, like you say, he's completely stuck, and he's kind of isolated there. He needs people in his ear, like Mark Noble, who are mentoring him how to be a better captain. And he needs other leaders on the pitch, and that otherwise he's going to be let down.
He needs Souček and all. At least he's a captain of his country. Do you know what I mean? Richard B says, when we were getting thumped last season, it was the players' fault. Well, that's a lie. This season, it's all on the manager and Tim. Every time we got thumped last year, it was Moyes' fault and it was the players' fault. This season, the reason what I can't work out with this, is why are we getting hammered so early on in the season and getting blitzed? Now, new manager comes in, usually get a new manager bounce to a point. Well, I think everyone would probably agree on this. Yeah, comes in, it galvanizes it, everything. From the first 5 games, there's been nothing. Yeah, and now we're 10 games in, right? And I don't see what he's trying. Like, as we've always said, and listen, people in the chat ain't stupid. They know this and all. Like, when you look at Lopetegui, what do you see him trying to do? Because I can't see. I don't know what he's trying to do. Do you know what I mean?
And this is the problem, right? At least under Moyes, I say at least even under Allardyce, right? Let's park the Moyes chat. Under Allardyce, we were ugly as sin, but you knew where we were going to set up and you knew our plan. It was be really compact at the back, lump it up at Andy Carroll, and see if we can score from a knockdown. Lo and behold, at Christmas in his last season, we were 4th. And then supposedly, according to Kevin Nolan, he got told he wasn't going to be kept on around January, and that coincided with our massive slump in form because the players stopped playing for him as much. Literally, like that is how wrong we get it at times. But again, Allardyce, there was loads of criticisms about the way he played football. He switched to a 4-1-2-1-2 in his last season. We were absolutely unbelievable. So it just goes to show at least he had some tactical nous, and at least he had a philosophy and a way of playing. We don't have that, mate. We sit here and we cannot figure out what he's actually trying to do, and we're going for this more possession-based style, which is fine. Again, I got no problem if we want to play with 60% or 20% of the ball. If you win games, I don't really care. But we had 60% of the ball in the first 45 minutes. 45 minutes. We had one shot, and that was in the 46th. Like, I don't want to see West Ham just pass the ball around in our own half. Like, you have to get to the final third and then know how you're going to create a chance. It's just basics. But we don't have that because we don't have a philosophy, and we don't have a coach who seems to have any idea how to play that way. Like you've said this point to the other day, which was absolutely right. He's trying to play a European style in the Premier League, and he's getting found out because he hasn't got the ability and he hasn't got the players to do it because we haven't got the right squad for it.
And that is my worry, if I'm honest. Before I get to Michael's question, that's my concern, is that he's trying to do something that is not sustainable, right? And it ain't going to work. Now, I will come to it in a minute, but I fear for him. I really do. I fear for us to a point also. Why do players play out their skins when the manager's in the last chance saloon, then revert back to being shit once done? Good question, that is, because there were so many times, even though, listen, I used to try and defend Moyes to a point, but I would call him out. But there were so many times where he was on the final, string, basically, and he would pull out a result against Fulham away, 1-0 win, own goal. Everton at home, 2-0 win. Bowen getting both of them, I think it was. Like, every single time he'd pull a result out of his arse. And the same thing applies here with Lopetegui to a point. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at the weekend if we go and win the game. It really wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't be sitting there going, oh, wow, like we've won the game. Because they know how to do it. And I think I just look at it and I feel that this is just going one way and it's going backwards. Do you know what I'm saying? What do you make, like, to round this video up? What do you make of the next sort of the future of West Ham, Jay, to a point? Because I'm gonna be honest. I see something today, and there's people trying to justify that the people who are angry. I'll use me as an example because I ain't gonna use no one else. I'll use me. People like me who's angry at the minute and saying that I want him out are wrong. To me, I feel like they are trying to gaslight me. And for example, for saying, well, hold on a minute, lucky hell, celebration time again. They're trying to gaslight me and go from there. Honestly, I don't understand why. Do you know what I mean? I don't understand why that fireworks went off either, but it's not November the 5th yet. But, you know, what are you saying, Jay?
I think if you're, and this is everyone in chat, right? If you're Lopetegui out, I hear you and I see why you're Lopetegui out, because I don't see anything to be encouraged by. I was looking at I don't remember why I was looking at this, but I was looking at Spurs under Nuno Espirito Santo, because Nuno, obviously, he lasted exactly this amount of time. He was appointed around the same time as Lopetegui was in that equivalent season, and he was sacked on November the 1st. Because he wasn't getting the results right. So Spurs recognised that he wasn't the right man. He wasn't the right fit for the club. And I remember watching them at our place. We beat them 1-0. Spurs were dreadful. They were absolutely awful. They showed, and they had a top quality team as well, by the way. Like, Harry Kane was still playing for them. They had loads of good players on the pitch, but they were nothing. They were absolutely nothing. They made the call. They got rid of him. They got Antonio Conte in. They got a manager who has a style of play, who has a philosophy. Weren't pretty. It weren't necessarily like the most attractive way of playing, but he dragged him back into the Champions League. So I don't know if he finished there in his first season. Can't remember. Don't quote me on it. But the point is, we don't have the owners that are willing to make that call. So if you're Lopetegui out, fair enough. Like, I agree with you. I'd say save your energy, because we all know he ain't going to change. I see the Athletic Roshane. Shout out to Roshane. I like Roshane. He, I believe, has written something saying that if we lose to Everton, he could be gone. I don't think that's going to happen. I genuinely don't think that's going to happen because it will cost too much money. We know that we only go for cheap options, and I don't reckon we've got an alternative lined up. Change your the way I'm trying to look at this is I'm just going to sit back and whatever happens. And I really think we need to adjust where our anger is placed and start looking at the board again because they are getting off so lightly. Steiden is the perfect storm for them because Sullivan brought him in so that he could kind of just drop back, like that Homer Simpson meme where he just goes back into the hedge, just quietly step backwards. If it goes well, he's a genius because he brought in this modern style technical director. If it goes wrong, well, it's Steiden's fault in it, and then all of the energy, all of our attention,
I completely agree.
Steiden and the manager. So change the way that you're looking. Look back at the owners who have made the wrong call time after time, who basically bowed to pressure of certain areas of our fan base to get rid of David Moyes, and ultimately got the cheap option. That is where you should be focusing your energy. Just sit back. Whatever happens.
What you just said there is probably the best statement that I've heard for a while. It's like he's got it already rigged up that if it goes wrong, Steiden's the fall guy. When really everyone should be looking at him. Do you know what? One thing that really does grind on me, really does, it irritates me. And I understand it when they can't do it at home. But last season, when they didn't like the manager, the banners come out. When they didn't like the manager, the banners come out for GSB. Also, where are they now? Like, you can't just flip it on, flip it off, flip it on, flip it off when you want. Yeah, I've been this balled out since 2016. Like, I've been it for a long time, and what I don't get is when people. And it's funny, isn't it? It's funny that the game against Forest was the same game last year with a banner come out for Moyes, and then you had another banner there sitting there with GSB. Where are these GSB banners? Because the problem is, and you've just fucking nailed it, Jay. Absolutely nailed it. And I'm going to say it quite openly. You look at that and you go, right, they've got their man in place like Steiden. So if it goes wrong, it's the recruitment. It's not the manager, it's the recruitment that's fucked him. And they all know it. Do you know what I mean? It is what it is. Now, Brozovic in the chat, he says, how can you run a GSB out gimmick when he's put money up in the summer? I'll tell you the reason why I can. Because one, the ownership of this club are trying to prize out the fan base with ticket prices. Unacceptable. Two, they always go for the cheap option. They don't go for the long-term option. It's a cheap option. They've gambled. And three, the main thing of all, and the most important thing of all is that they sold a lie for their own financial gain. Yeah, everything is for their own financial gain, and nothing else will ever change that. Do you know what I'm saying? Now it's affecting everyone now. Yeah, I remember saying this back in 2016. I'll never forget. Someone who I know close to me turned around and said, "Jay, you watch him turn it into a franchise." And he was at 100% bang on. 100% bang on. When you've got West Ham United London underneath, you're trying to make West Ham into a franchise, and it's obvious. So also,
can I just say, like, what's the point in putting all this money up for players when you couldn't put the money up for a manager? What's the actual point? I don't understand it. Like, you can have all of the parts. We've proven that having all the parts there, we've got a load of really good players. I'm not here for Aaron Wan-Bissaka hyper criticism. I'm not here for I see people turning on Kilman. You could do that all you want. Again, your anger and your criticism is misplaced. We've got a ton of good individual players, but what is the point in having all these good individual players when you've got the wrong manager? Why didn't we go and get somebody who actually has a vision and actually has the ability to coach the players that we've got? Because currently we don't. So it's 130, 140 million pounds that has been spaffed up the wall because we haven't got a way of using it. So that is why, for me, it's a valid question because he has put up money, but what's the point? You'd have been better off spending half that money and going and getting a top quality coach.
That's a valid point.
Yeah,
he's not using his money; he's using the money the club generates, and it's a cash cow, isn't it?
Taking all his interest off of his loans still, isn't he? When other owners are doing it for 0.5% or 0%, it's crazy, mate. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is, mate. I must admit. to round this video up, Jay, right? Obviously, we said about Lopetegui, we spoke about Steiden, Sullivan, etc. What are you expecting from like this week leading up to the Everton game? Because I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be sort of, how do I put this? I feel quite flat. I feel quite flat with West Ham at the minute, considering where we've been. I don't know what to expect on Saturday at 3 o'clock. I really don't. What are you expecting this week?
I'm going into it trying to drown out some of the noise. Mate, as I'm sure you've seen, and if anyone in chat hasn't seen, and if especially if you were late as well, we were talking about some of the stuff that's been coming out on social media. I see somewhere apparently on Knees Up Mother Brown, Steidon walks away at the end of the season, not due to performance reasons. There's tons of noise going on at the moment. I'm just going to kind of sit back and try and ignore the noise and not get drawn into any Twitter arguments. Your life will be like a little bit easier and a little bit brighter if you try and avoid any arguments with idiots on Twitter. I'm expecting more noise to come out. I'm expecting it to feel very tense and very nervous leading up to the game and at the game, because it will be. Because if like some of these stories are to be believed, then he's right up against it, and I expect that to translate onto the pitch, and we can expect to see another nervy, difficult, cagey, awkward performance, which has been the symptom of Lopetegui's West Ham. So, for me personally, like we were all so downbeat on Saturday, so downbeat. Like we were sat in these chairs having a chat amongst us, you, me, and Lucas, plus Sadadi, plus Kane when they both came on, and I felt miserable. Yesterday we had a really nice chat. It was a really good show for anyone who didn't see it. Do try and catch up on it where we did the player ratings, and I felt better because, as Mitch said at the end, at least I got to sit with you three and have a nice chat after he pretended to shoot himself on stream. So
I did watch that back. It was quite funny.
It was funny, wasn't it? So I'm just going to try and avoid all the noise. Like, there's no point worrying about like stuff that you can't control. I'm looking forward to going to the game still. I missed the Man U game because I was playing golf. So I haven't been to London Stadium in a while. I'm going to ignore the noise. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to have a few beers. I'm going to watch probably a crap game of football, but I'm going to have fun doing it. So I advise people to do similar if you can. And whatever happens, happens. That's my advice.
My sort of round up to this is basically we're just going to have to keep the faith on this one. Yeah, that's one thing I will say. Whatever happens on Saturday, if we do lose the game and we lose the game in a manner that is unacceptable, he has to go. He simply has to go. There is no more excuses. You have to have a standard, as I always say on this channel, right? And people, the old guard, keep thinking it's acceptable not to have a standard. Sorry, you're in the new era now. Yeah, there's a standard at West Ham, and the standard is top 10. And if you don't get top 10, why have you not got top 10? And basically, how are you going to achieve that goal next season? And I do fear for Saturday. I really do. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to have an Everton fan on in the week. It's the worst game for West Ham to play against Everton. Of all the teams to come and play us right now, this one's the worst one because we just don't beat this team at the LS. And the amount of times they have shit ass 1-0s and got results is borderline a joke, especially last season when it was absolutely awful. Do you know what I mean?
Last season, wasn't it? Awful game of football. Christ.
Yeah, it was one of the worst games I think I've probably watched for a hell of a long time. And it was so bad. So the only thing I will say is keep the faith and see what happens. I want to thank everyone who put their questions in. Sorry I didn't read them all out. When we get going, the going gets tough. We seem just like they all fly in, and I miss a few of them. So yeah. Also, got some good news for the 110 of you watching. I am going to be doing a giveaway at Christmas. Yeah, I'm unsure what it's going to be. Yeah, it's either going to be a shirt that I done a year ago, or it's going to be customized mugs with like Bobby Moore and Trevor Brooking and all that. I'm speaking to someone about it. I'm going to buy them all outright and give them away for a Christmas present from everyone who's sort of a subscriber on E20. So if you want one of them, put hashtag E20 mug. Yeah, right, because everyone thinks I'm a mug, right? And you will be in with a chance. I will spin the wheel, and if you win, I will send it to you. I gave away 2 shirts 2 years ago on this platform, and basically, I'm probably going to do it again because I'm going to be straight. I like to give back to the people, mate. Do you know what I mean? Especially at Christmas. Especially at Christmas, one time a year that I do look at things and think, right, of life a bit different. And some people are struggling at the minute. So if I can help put a smile on a kid's face, or a dad who can't afford to buy his kid something for Christmas, I'll fucking do it. Do you know what I mean? Even if it means I'm piss poor broke. Anyway, that will be coming up in a few weeks' time. Yeah. So you know what I mean? After the video, put in hashtag E20 muck. And we'll go from there. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Smash a like on the video, goes a long way. And I will see you in the week. Everton are coming to town. Are we coming to town? That's the real question. Peace.